Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back into a world without alarm clocks, blackout curtains, or lavender-scented melatonin gummies. Imagine waking up in a one-room timber cottage where your only pillow is a sack of straw and the wind whistles through the cracks in the walls. Outside, wolves howl, and inside the embers of a peat fire give off a weak orange glow. It's pitch black. You're cold. You're sore. You're exhausted from working the fields. And yet, despite all of this, your medieval counterpart is about to get the best sleep of their life. Why? Because they're about to do something you've probably never even heard of. Something that, oddly enough, might just be the healthiest, most natural sleep rhythm ever practiced. They're about to indulge in segmented sleep. That's right, 2 sleeps, not 1. And it's not weird. For them, it's routine. For us, it's the forgotten hack we never knew we needed. Of course, you probably wouldn't survive one winter night in their world, not with your memory foam mattress and your central heating. But hey, that's why you're safe on the other side of the screen. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It begins as most medieval nights do, with silence. Not the clean silence of modern bedrooms, but a layered quiet one you can feel pressing against your skin. You hear the distant rustling of trees, the creak of your thatched roof, settling the occasional grunt of an ox in the stall next door. You share this room with your family, maybe your livestock too. Privacy that doesn't exist, but routine does. And one part of that routine is knowing exactly when your body wants to rest and when it doesn't. You lie down around sunset. No one tells you to. The light is gone, the fire is low, and the effort to stay awake would simply waste precious fuel. The rhythms of your body and the earth are completely in sync. So you sleep. Not a deep 8-hour stretch, but the first of 2 segments. This first sleep typically lasts about 4 hours. Then, sometime around midnight, you stir. At first, you might think it's insomnia, but it's not. This is what everyone does. Waking in the night isn't a problem. It's an opportunity. You wake alert, but calm in a moment, known back then as the watch. It's a slice of liminal time tucked neatly between 2 sleeps. And in that space, strange things happen. People pray. They talk softly. They get up to check on animals, stoke the fire, maybe even go visit a neighbor. Some make love. Others reflect in silence. This was considered the best time to think, even to write. Monks used it to copy manuscripts. Poets loved it. And peasants found comfort in it. You lying on your straw bed might feel your breath sinking with the rhythm of the coals crackling faintly at your feet. There's no rush to do anything, no guilt about being awake, no screen to check. You just exist nestled in this sacred gap. Medical texts from the period even advised that this break was healthy. Physicians like Roger Bacon and Thomas Aquinas alluded to the body's natural divisions of sleep. The first sleep was for deep restoration. The second for dreams, and between the two, a spiritual pause, a time when the veil between waking and dreaming was at its thinnest. Some described this watch as the best part of the day or night, depending on how you looked at it. With your body rested and your mind calm, it was a moment of quiet power. The world was still, and so were you. It's easy to forget, as you lie there now, that this rhythm once belonged to everyone. It wasn't some productivity hack shared on a podcast. It was the norm passed through generations, inscribed in prayer books and folk wisdom. Even household schedules accommodated it. Tasks were split before and after the night's midpoint meals, adjusted conversations planned. But that's just the beginning. You haven't even reached your second sleep yet. Eventually, without trying, you drift back. No panic, no tossing, just a gentle slide back into unconsciousness. This second sleep is deeper, in some ways more reflective. It's the one filled with images, dreams that arrive like whispers from a cracked church bell tower. People in the Middle Ages believed dreams held truths. Sometimes they were divine messages, warnings, or simple nonsense. But they were never ignored. You wake before dawn feeling strangely refreshed, not because you got a perfect 8 hours, but because your sleep mirrored the earth's breath, an inhale, a pause, and an exhale. You didn't fight the night. You moved through it with it. And it wasn't just peasants who lived this way. Records show segmented sleep was observed in monasteries, noble households, even by kings and queens. In fact, the idea of first sleep and second sleep was so common that it appeared in literature diaries and even legal documents. In a 13th century French manual, there's mention of servants being expected to return to duties after the first sleep. In Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, the idea appears as a passing detail, so normal it doesn't need explanation. But then came the slow death of the night. Artificial light arrived, first with candles and oil lamps made more affordable, and then with gas lamps and electric bulbs. Suddenly we could stretch the evening indefinitely. Bedtimes became later. The watch became inconvenient. It was reframed as an affliction, middle of the night waking. A problem to be solved, not a tradition to be remembered. You feel this shift now, centuries later. You lie awake at 3 a.m. and wonder what's wrong with you. You check your phone. You stare at the ceiling. You fear the day ahead. But your medieval ancestor would have simply waited, watched, breathed, and eased back into the second sleep when the time felt right. There is wisdom in that. Even now, some sleep researchers argue that our obsession with a solid 8-hour block might be unnatural. Historian Roger Ekirk, who studied hundreds of historical references to segmented sleep, suggests that it's our modern schedules, not our biology, that disrupted this rhythm. And maybe, just maybe, if we understood this, we'd feel a little less broken, a little less alone. The wind outside your medieval cottage howls once more. A dog barks in the distance. You roll over your bones, aching from a day's labor, but your mind still wandering gently through that sacred pause. Tomorrow, you'll do it all again. And maybe centuries from now, someone will find their way back to this old rhythm and realize they were never meant to sleep straight through the night. Not when the night was meant to be shared. The fire has burned low now. The room around you is heavy with the scent of soot, damp wool, and packed earth. You lie in that narrow gap between dreams and waking the sweet stillness of the medieval night wrapped around your shoulders like a rough woolen blanket. The stars overhead, unseen through the smoke-darkened rafters, blaze in their eternal orbits. But you aren't thinking about stars. You're thinking about the strange calm that fills your chest. You've woken up in the dark, and for once it doesn't scare you. This is the watch. You're alert, yet unburdened. And in the Middle Ages, this was the time for whispers. In a nearby village, someone might be stoking a hearth, mumbling a quiet prayer, or turning over to murmur a secret to the person beside them. This mid-sleep period was sacred. Husbands and wives often used it for intimacy. Families used it for storytelling. In monasteries, it marked the hour of matins, the first prayers of the day, spoken in near silence, lit only by candlelight. Even in complete darkness, people knew what to do. They trusted the rhythm. They listened to the night, and it whispered back. You might be tempted to think this habit was rustic or born out of necessity, but don't be fooled. Even the most refined households, those of knights clergy and merchants, respected the deep power of segmented sleep. Picture yourself in a stone manor now, not a peasant's hut. There are tapestries on the walls to block the wind, and the hearth is larger, though it still smokes. A servant has placed embers in a warming pan beneath the blankets. You fell asleep after a heavy dinner of salted venison and boiled barley wrapped in layers of linen and fur. But even here, amid relative luxury, the pattern holds. First sleep, watch, second sleep. The wealthy may have had feather beds and imported silks, but their bodies responded to the same cues as yours. Circadian rhythms weren't classist. Everyone high-born and low listened to the same cues: the setting sun, the silence, the body's needs. There's something deeply democratic about sleep in the medieval world. For all its rigid hierarchies and harsh injustices, nightfall was a great equalizer. When the light faded, all stood on common ground, craving rest, fearing the unknown, surrendering to the dark. But while the day divided, the night connected. During the watch, some people wrote letters or poetry. Others prayed the rosary or read from psalters. Those who couldn't read simply sat still, letting their thoughts drift like the smoke curling up through the rafters. It wasn't a time of anxiety. It was a time of reflection. And while the fire glowed faintly in the hearth, the darkness didn't press in as a threat. It became a companion. You get up quietly. The floor is cold against your bare feet, even through the thick rushes strewn with dried herbs like lavender and thyme. Medieval folk believed these plants purified the air and deterred pests. You kneel by the hearth, stirring the coals, gently coaxing back a flicker of warmth. Your breath clouds in the air as you sit for a while, rubbing your hands together. You aren't in a hurry. There's nowhere to be, no productivity to chase, no blue light waiting to hijack your melatonin. Just time. Beautiful, unhurried, undivided time. And here's where the magic happens. Because as you sit in the watch, your body does something remarkable. It rests while awake. Your heart rate slows. Your cortisol levels remain low. You might even enter a state similar to meditation without needing to call it that. Monks and mystics would describe it as divine presence. Physicians called it natural. We today would call it a miracle if we could manage even 10 minutes of it without reaching for our phones. Outside, the village is sleeping. Roofs glisten faintly with dew. A church bell might toll softly in the distance, one of the few timekeepers in a world without clocks. Bells weren't just for summoning worshippers. They marked the passage of time, dividing night and day, prayer and labor, birth and burial. And in the stillness of the watch, you hear them more clearly than ever. Then slowly, almost imperceptibly, the heaviness returns to your limbs. Your eyelids grow heavier, not with exhaustion, but invitation. The second sleep is calling. You lie back down, curling inward, grateful for warmth, for quiet, for the permission to do nothing but drift. This second sleep is when dreams come. Richer, deeper, more vivid than before. Medieval thinkers believed dreams during second sleep were more potent, more truthful. They recorded them in journals, retold them to confessors, pondered them like parables. In a world filled with uncertainty, dreams were often the only maps people had. They revealed anxieties, desires, or divine signs. They were not dismissed as random noise. They were studied. Imagine dreaming now. You're in a cloistered garden. You smell rosemary and hear bees. A voice calls your name from behind a hedge, but you aren't afraid. The dream wraps you in a strange peace. You wake slowly, still tasting the images on your tongue, and it's nearly dawn. There's a gray-blue light now creeping under the wooden shutters. Birds begin to call softly. You hear a rooster distant at first, then another closer by. The watch has ended. The second sleep has completed its work. You stretch sore but restored. There's no alarm, no jolt. Just the natural end to a night shaped by darkness and designed for healing. You've slept in rhythm with a world long forgotten. And as you rise, pulling on your coarse tunic and wrapping your cloak around your shoulders, you feel oddly good, grounded, whole. Not because of luxury, but because of the simplicity of it all. You didn't fight the night. You didn't try to bend it to your will. You let it carry you. Soon you'll gather eggs, stoke the fire again. Eat some coarse bread with cheese or ale, and begin your work. But for this brief morning moment, you remember what it felt like to live with time not against it. To rest when you're tired. To wake when you're ready. And that perhaps more than anything is the secret our ancestors knew, that sleep is not a task to be accomplished, but a rhythm to be honored. The modern world, with its clocks and screens and endless schedules, has forgotten this. But you haven't. Not tonight. You've stepped back into a time when sleep came in 2 acts, and the intermission was just as important as the main event. And now, as the sun finally tips over the horizon, you gather your things. It's time to meet the day. But don't worry, we'll be back in the night again soon. The dawn slips in like a whisper, and you, still half wrapped in the warmth of second sleep, move through the early morning haze like a ghost. Outside your cottage or manor window, a thin mist clings to the ground, turning the village into something softer, quieter than it was yesterday. The day will be loud. It will demand things of you. But for now, it's just the hush of waking earth and the creak of old wood beneath your feet. You begin your morning as every medieval person did, with tasks tied to survival. Maybe you tend the hearth first, stirring yesterday's coals and coaxing life into them with careful breath. Or perhaps you step outside, crunching across frost or dewy grass to check on animals, goats, hens, pigs who rely on you as much as you rely on them. You don't rush. Your body, attuned by habit and hunger, moves at its own pace. Still nestled in your memory is that night just past. You can feel the echo of the watch, that peaceful sliver of time between sleeps, like a page you folded gently in a book. The rhythm of it lingers. You don't need to think about it. It just lives in your bones now. You slept not to escape the day, but to live in harmony with it. But now imagine this: you aren't you. Not tonight. Tonight you're someone else, still medieval, still human. But this time you live in a city. Let's say it's London in the year 1382. The air smells like firewood and sewage. The alleys are narrow, and the buildings lean inward as if conspiring. Here, segmented sleep doesn't vanish. It adapts. Even in cities, the structure of the night holds. People sleep in shifts, still guided by the sun, the cold, the bells of churches. But city life adds complexity. You might share a room above a tavern. There's music below, muffled through the beams. You fall asleep to laughter and the occasional shout. But when the first sleep ends, it's the quiet you notice first. The fire has gone out. The wine downstairs has run dry. The city breathes differently at midnight. And you, like your rural cousins, awaken in the dark. The watch is stranger in a city. It's filled with the odd sounds of other people doing other things, footsteps outside a horse, trotting down a cobbled lane. Maybe the cry of a night watchman calling the hour. 2 o'clock and all's well. You sit up, blink into the blackness, and reach for the clay cup of water near your palate. No one thinks it odd that you're awake. No one asks why you're not sleeping. You simply are. Some urban dwellers take the time to write. Merchants tally accounts by candlelight. Guild members might sharpen tools or repair wares. Prostitutes finish their work and retreat to corners of rented rooms. Monks in city priories chant their matins prayers in frigid chapels. And in tenements stacked high like rotting teeth, common folk whisper lullabies to restless children during the watch, waiting for the second sleep to settle in. You, meanwhile, are still in that liminal space, both separate from and fully part of the world around you. The hours pass, and once more you return to sleep. By dawn, the city is awake with a ferocity unknown to the countryside. But beneath the shouting vendors and rumbling carts, there's a hidden softness in the people. They're tired, yes, but not broken by their sleep. The second sleep has done its work. Back in your own bed centuries later, you might be wondering what happened. Why did we stop? Why did a pattern so natural, so beautifully human, vanish from our world? It's a slow unraveling. The first threads were pulled with the arrival of artificial light. In the later Middle Ages, tallow candles and oil lamps became more affordable for the middle classes. Suddenly, evenings stretched longer. People stayed up, pushed back, bedtime started to crowd out the first sleep. Then came the Enlightenment, the Industrial Age, urbanization, gaslighting, factory schedules. Church bells were replaced by whistles and time cards. Productivity became a virtue, and sleep was reframed as laziness. By the 19th century, sleep researchers began labeling segmented sleep as a problem. Waking in the night that was no longer holy. It was an ailment, a failure of discipline, something to be medicated, corrected, silenced. But your body never got that memo. Your DNA still remembers. Your blood, your heart, your nerves, all of it still hums with the memory of 2 sleeps and a watch. You lie awake at 3 a.m. and think you're broken, but maybe you're just ancient. Maybe you're still medieval at your core. Even now, when power outages hit, or people go camping away from light pollution, segmented sleep reappears. Researchers have seen it. Give someone total darkness from sundown to sunup, and within a few weeks, their body will start dividing sleep again. First sleep, wake. Second sleep, like clockwork, or rather like no clock at all. It's not nostalgia, it's biology. There's something else, too, something quieter. In the Middle Ages, sleep wasn't just a medical need. It was a spiritual act. People saw it as a form of surrender. To rest was to trust. To sleep well was to be in right relation with God, with the land, with one's community. And in that middle space, the watch that trust deepened. You were alone, yes, but not isolated. You were still, but not stagnant. You were part of something vast. And even now, lying in your 21st century bed with its memory foam and white noise machines, some part of you still yearns for that feeling, that rhythm, that permission to pause, to wake, and to rest again without shame. So maybe tonight, when you wake in the dark, you'll try something different. You won't grab your phone. You won't panic. You'll breathe. You'll sit up. Maybe you'll pray. Maybe you'll listen. Maybe you'll just be. And when the time comes, you'll lie down again, not defeated, but aligned with the earth, with your past, with the night itself. Because the truth is, the medieval world didn't invent segmented sleep. It just listened to it, honored it, let it live. And you now drifting toward your own second sleep are learning to listen again. The morning fog clings low along the thatched rooftops, and your body, though upright now, still carries the softness of sleep. You feel it in your limbs, in the weight of your eyelids, in the way the light seems a bit too harsh after the gentle company of candle-lit dreams. But there is work to be done. Always. This is the medieval rhythm. Sleep, yes, but survival waits on no one. You step outside. The path is muddy beneath your worn boots. You can smell the cold, earthy, and damp, and the distant trace of dung from the oxen chewing lazily in their pen. You're already moving through the world again, and yet a piece of you lingers behind, still curled in that dark and sacred intermission, the watch like a soul reluctant to wake fully. But this part of the day is not about dreams. It's about effort. It's strange, isn't it, how life back then demanded so much, and yet people seem to carry their weariness differently. There were no sleep coaches or productivity journals, no wearable trackers blinking with judgments. Sleep wasn't optimized. It was trusted. And this trust showed in how the body flowed with the day. You start with chores, hauling water from the well, feeding animals, tending to the fire. All of it takes time. But time in the Middle Ages feels different, doesn't it? It's not sliced into digital seconds, not regimented by apps. It expands and contracts around the tasks themselves. You rise when it's light enough to see. You work until the sun tells you to stop. And when midday comes, you pause. Not just for food, but for breath. Maybe a hunk of black bread. A few cold beans. A sliver of cheese so sharp it bites back. And water. Always water unless ale is safer. You sit by the field wall, wiping your hands on your tunic, and that's when you feel it again, that echo. The body remembers last night's rhythm. That moment when you woke not in panic, but in peace. And though the sun is high now, your bones seem to carry a map of that space. A knowing. A memory. Segmented sleep does that. It plants something inside you, some quiet understanding, that rest is not a weakness and waking in the night is not failure. It's a returning, a breathing. Later, as the sun begins its slow retreat behind the trees, you're already thinking about nightfall. Not because you dread it, but because it's part of the pattern. Light fades, bodies slow. The hearth becomes the center of your world again. And the village or manor or tenement, wherever you are, begins to lean toward the dark. In the richer households, servants are lighting rushlights and candles, setting nightclothes by the beds, pouring warm water for feet sore from travel or labor. In poorer homes, the fire is stoked and the shutters drawn. People settle into worn benches or beds made of straw and linen scraps. Voices fall to murmurs. And above it all, the night reclaims its place. But before we return to sleep, let's pause and ask, why did segmented sleep make so much sense to medieval people? Beyond the biology and the darkness, what else made this rhythm feel so right? The answer lies in the way their world was shaped. Medieval life was filled with interruptions, seasonal, spiritual, social. Time wasn't a straight line. It looped and turned and doubled back. The day was punctuated by church bells, feast days, harvest festivals, sudden illness, and unexpected guests. So why shouldn't the night be equally fluid? The church's influence was massive here. Time itself was organized by divine order, matins, lauds, vespers, compline. Sleep bowed to this sacred structure. It wasn't a block of unconsciousness to be squeezed in between obligations. It was a gift, a holy rhythm, one that aligned you with the angels, and for those without religious vocations, the practicality was still evident. Farmers rose early to catch the cool morning air. Travelers broke their journey to sleep and then continued before dawn. Even midwives and herbalists knew the usefulness of that middle night waking. It was the perfect time for childbirth, for quiet healing, for privacy. The night wasn't a wall, it was a passage, a corridor, a place to move through and emerge from, not just endure. And maybe this is what our modern world forgot. We feared the dark. We flooded it with light. We confused activity with vitality and silence with stagnation. We labeled middle-of-the-night waking as disorder. But perhaps we simply stopped listening to the messages our bodies tried to send. Now you lie down again hours later after supper. Maybe your muscles ache. Maybe your thoughts buzz. But you know the first sleep will come soon. You've done this before. Your body remembers. You feel the warmth of the fire on your face, hear the breathing of those nearby family servants, maybe even strangers depending on your station. Medieval homes were rarely empty. The idea of having a private bedroom unheard of. Yet sleep still found a way. Rest still made its home in shared spaces, and as the fire dies down and the dark swells again, you cross the threshold into first sleep without even trying. There's no clock to set, no schedule to follow, just a yielding. Somewhere far off, a bell chimes the hour. Midnight is not far away, and you, as always, will rise into the watch like a boat drifting up on the tide. Because this is not a disruption. This is the way the night breathes. You wake gently, as if the night itself has placed a hand on your shoulder, not to shake you, but to remind you of something. The fire has burned low again, a bed of orange coals pulsing like the heart of the house. Around you, the familiar silhouettes lie in stillness. Your brother curled near the hearth. Your mother's soft snoring from the corner. The straw mattress shifting beneath your own weight. There is no sound but the whisper of wind through the shutter slats and the occasional stir of a chicken below the floorboards. This is the watch. Again and again it feels right. You stretch quietly beneath the scratchy wool, feeling the weight of your tunic tug at your shoulders. The air is cold but not biting. You reach for the cup of water left near your bed. It's gone lukewarm, but it tastes clean. In the deep dark, even that tastes sacred. You don't rush to fall back asleep. No one expects you to. The second sleep will come. It always does. And so you sit, or kneel, or simply rest with your eyes open. Your medieval self might pray. That's what many did, not because they were especially pious, but because prayer was what filled the spaces in between. Paternosters whispered in the dark. Psalms half remembered. Maybe a chant taught long ago mouthed silently so as not to wake others. The words aren't about performance. They're anchors, rituals, a way to feel held in something greater. Others might choose silence, to simply be in the dark, awake, aware, unafraid. There's a richness to that kind of quiet. It's not the anxious silence we associate with insomnia, but a full-bodied hush that feels more like listening than absence. And some take this moment to write. Imagine it now, a scribe in a monastery wrapped in layers of wool, hunched over a narrow table, scratching ink across vellum by the flicker of a tallow candle. The watch wasn't just a time for thought. It was a time for creation. Ideas seem to arrive more clearly in this middle-of-the-night space, as though the mind half-rested and half-waking could think more freely. Poets have long called it the hour of the soul. You might write too if you could, even if it's just a few lines, a thought caught between breaths. In the stillness, words rise like mist. In another part of the world, a different village, a different night, a woman might use the watch to nurse a child. A man might sharpen a tool. A healer might step outside barefoot to listen to the wind and read the weather. These aren't activities squeezed into productivity blocks. They're natural, unhurried, done in darkness without dread. Even the animals stir with their own rhythms. Chickens shift in the coop. A dog groans in sleep. Somewhere a cow lows softly, not in distress, just existing in its own steady time. And while all this is happening, the second sleep waits. No pressure, no countdown. It will arrive when it's ready. You lie back down. There's something else about segmented sleep you've begun to understand now. Something subtle, almost unspoken. It's not just how medieval people slept, it's what it gave them. The watch became a space that modern life forgot a time without interruption, but also without expectation. In that gap between sleeps, you were free, not just from chores or obligations, but from identity. No role to perform, no one to impress, no decisions to make, just a breathing body in the dark. And in that freedom, people found themselves again. They grieved quietly in the watch when the day's busyness no longer shielded them. They remembered lost loves. They imagined other lives. They forgave themselves. They whispered things in the night that daylight made impossible. Even lovers in that half-woken hush shared their most vulnerable selves. Not the polished words of courtship, but the raw truths that live between dreams and dawn. Husbands and wives touched fingers in the dark, not to stir desire, but simply to remind each other, I'm still here. You may feel something like that now alone, but not lonely, surrounded by centuries of people who once did exactly what you're doing. Woke, waited, watched, not in dread, but in quiet wonder. And slowly, like a ship returning to harbor, your mind begins to drift again. The weight in your limbs returns. Thoughts grow soft at the edges. The body, already halfway to sleep, begins the gentle descent. The second sleep begins. This time, the dreams are richer. You dream of water running through a forest, of stone paths through endless fields, of bells ringing somewhere far off, too distant to hear clearly, but close enough to feel in your bones. Faces appear, some familiar, some strangers. You walk among them without fear. And when you finally wake hours later, the world is different, brighter. The sun is not quite up, but the sky is tinged with blue. The coals in the hearth are cold. The cottage breathes beside you. You've slept through a rhythm that once ruled the lives of millions. And your body, though modern, feels the ancient music still echoing. Maybe you stretch. Maybe you sit for a while and just breathe. But somewhere in the corner of your mind, you begin to ask, what have we lost? What have we traded away in our desperate pursuit of efficiency? And could something as simple, so achingly simple as waking in the night, be the very key to resting more deeply? You step into the morning light with that question quietly tucked in your heart. And though you will forget the dream, your bones will remember. Morning has arrived, but it doesn't rush you. There are no digital alarms, no urgent pings from messages, no calendar squares blinking red with deadlines. You rise with the slow dignity of someone who's moved through the night in harmony with time itself. You slept in 2 acts, and in between, you sat awake without judgment. You remember now, don't you? The hush of the watch, the warm whisper of coals, the flicker of candlelight, that deep and forgotten kind of peace. You pull on your tunic, still a little stiff from yesterday's work, and step out into the day. The sky is soft with morning mist, and the sun is low behind the trees. The air smells like ash and wet wood, with a faint scent of rosemary from the bundle you tucked into the rafters for good luck. All around you, life stirs slowly. A dog yawns near the doorway. A woman draws water from the well. Chickens rustle unimpressed by your philosophical reveries. And yet something feels different in your chest. That's the secret of segmented sleep. It doesn't just change your night. It reshapes your day. You begin to notice things. Small things. The way the wind touches the tips of the grass. The sound of a child's laughter from a nearby field. The rough comfort of wooden utensils against your hands as you eat. You are present in a way most modern people have forgotten how to be. And you owe that presence not to some miracle of willpower or discipline, but to the way your body was allowed to move through the dark exactly as it wanted. But let's follow this thread deeper. What did medieval people believe was happening during that watch? Why did they trust it so easily while we treat midnight wakefulness like a medical emergency? Part of the answer lies in their understanding of time. Time in the Middle Ages wasn't flat. It wasn't a line you marched down minute by minute. It was circular, cyclical, sacred, divided not into work hours and free hours, but into canonical hours, moments marked for prayer, reflection, and connection. The watch nestled between Compline and Lauds was a naturally sacred space. Even if you weren't a monk, you lived under the shadow of the monastery bell. It ordered your world. And because of this sacred lens, waking in the night wasn't disruptive, it was expected. In fact, people sometimes believed that God wanted you awake then. That this liminal space between sleeps was a thin place where the veil between heaven and earth was pulled ever so slightly back. You could feel it, couldn't you? That sense of being alone but not truly alone. Of being watched but not judged. of being gently held in some eternal rhythm that asked nothing of you but stillness. That's why prayers in the watch were often different. They were softer, more personal, more honest. People asked for protection, for insight, for the strength to carry burdens by daylight. Some simply said nothing at all. The quiet was the prayer. In more literate households, the watch was even a time to read. Imagine that reading not to learn, not to improve, not to become better, but just to dwell in mystery. A psalm, a bit of poetry, a folk story scratched into the margins of an old book. Reading by firelight, the words melting into shadows as you drifted closer to second sleep. And dreams, oh how seriously dreams were taken. The second sleep was sacred for its dreams. Your medieval self believed they came from beyond, that they were sent. You didn't brush them off or forget them over breakfast. You pondered them. Sometimes entire villages would ask a wise woman or a monk to interpret a particularly troubling dream. A child born during a storm might carry a prophecy in their sleep. A dream of water could mean change. A dream of fire might be a warning. You didn't need dream dictionaries. You had a sense that your own heart was speaking. You sitting in the soft hay of your morning hour, now try to remember what your second sleep brought. Was it a face, a place, a feeling? Even if the memory fades, the residue remains. A strange calm. A sense of having been somewhere ancient. Now imagine again that you aren't a peasant or a monk, but someone else entirely. A sailor, perhaps drifting in a wooden ship across the channel. Or a traveling merchant holed up in a roadside inn. Or a widow sleeping alone in the loft above her daughter's home. The details change, but the rhythm doesn't. Everyone wakes. Everyone waits. Everyone returns to sleep. That shared rhythm, that invisible cord binding the kingdom together in the night, is what makes medieval sleep feel less like a private act and more like a communal ritual. You were never the only one awake. Not really. Even now in our modern homes lit by LED bulbs and guarded by smartphones, there's a part of us that longs for that feeling, that yearns to wake in the dark and not feel shame. Because maybe the watch is still inside us. Maybe every 2 a.m. wake-up is not a curse, but an invitation. And what if instead of rejecting it, we stepped into it gently, quietly, without judgment? What if we allowed our sleepless moments to become sacred again? You walk back inside as the village begins to stir. A cart creaks down the lane. Somewhere a bell rings for prime. The first true hour of the working day. But you carry with you something unseen. Not just rest, not just dreams, but the memory of a night not broken but honored. A rhythm not lost but waiting. The days in the medieval world come and go with the solemn dignity of processionals. Each one mirrors the last, yet every evening carries a slightly different hush, some thicker with frost, some interrupted by owls, others softened by warm wind from the south. And every night, no matter the season, the same rhythm begins again. First sleep, then waking, then second sleep. It's as reliable as the moon's pull and just as quiet. Tonight you return to your bed after a long day. Your hands are sore from labor kneading dough, chopping, kindling, carding wool. You feel it in your shoulders too, the weight of simple survival. There's no such thing as leisure time in the medieval sense. Time is either labor or necessity, prayer or rest. Yet even as your body aches, your mind settles easily. You've done this before. You've surrendered to the dark 1,000 times, and it has always returned you softened and whole. You lie down early as everyone does. There is no reason to stay up. Candles are too expensive to waste. Firewood is rationed. Besides, the dark makes its case well. It covers everything in its thick velvet folds, and you obey. The first sleep arrives quickly, like a hand pulling you gently beneath a warm blanket. There is no resistance, no screen glow, no caffeine echo, just the steady descent into unconsciousness. Some hours later, you rise. Not fully, not abruptly, just gently, like floating to the surface of a still pond. The room is dark, but not frightening. There's the soft sound of someone else shifting nearby, the occasional creak of timber, a gust of wind finding its way through the shutters. But you are awake and you are calm. This is the watch. And tonight, like all nights, you find yourself at peace within it. You don't reach for anything. There's no expectation to be productive. But your body, rested and alert, calls you to presence. You sit for a while watching the low ember light. The shadows move slowly on the wall, long and curling like ink trails on parchment. You aren't trying to fall back asleep. You're simply living. And in this space, strange clarity arrives. Medieval people often used this waking period to think through problems. They weren't burdened by overthinking as we know it. The mind, refreshed after 4 hours of sleep, was free to wander gently. This was the hour of intuition. Solutions to crop issues, family disputes, or upcoming journeys often came in the watch. Not through logic, but through quiet reckoning. A kind of listening that modern life seldom allows. Some took this further. If you were educated, a priest, a monk, or a noblewoman taught to read, you might use the watch for reading sacred texts. You'd have a psalter, or perhaps a book of hours, lit only by a beeswax candle or a rushlight soaked in animal fat. You'd trace your finger along the lines of familiar prayers. Not to recite them aloud, but to feel them. The words were part of you, sewn into the fabric of your soul by long use. And even those who couldn't read still had language. They had memory. They had stories passed down in kitchens and fields and hearths. The watch was a time when stories were remembered, whispered to oneself, or shared between bedmates in a shared room. Tales of saints, heroes, miracles, even superstitions, the watch fed them all. You might even reflect on your dreams from the first sleep. Was there a face, a symbol, a strange event that left a mark? People believed dreams could be warnings or blessings. They were messages, not byproducts. To dream was to receive. And to wake between sleeps was to process what had been given. Tonight your dream was subtle. Just a field waving in wind, the sound of distant bells, and a child's voice calling your name. You don't understand it, but you hold it close anyway, like a stone in your palm. And so the watch becomes night after night, a small ceremony of stillness. No rush. No resistance, just breath, body, and time. When the second sleep returns, and it always does, it slips in like mist. You don't remember the exact moment your eyes close. There is no struggle, no effort. It's as if the body, having had its moment of wakeful grace, is now satisfied, ready to drift. The second sleep, by all accounts, is different. Lighter, yes, but not less important. Some say it carries more dreams. Others say it's more emotionally healing. Medieval minds may not have used scientific terms, but they knew its value. They spoke of the second sleep with reverence. It was the sleep of visions, of restoration. And while you sleep, the world continues. The embers glow. The church bell tolls. Somewhere down the road, a guard at the city gate leans on his spear, half asleep himself, keeping an eye out for shadows. By the time you wake, the horizon is beginning to brighten. The morning birds start slowly like cautious singers, testing their voices. The chill has returned to your toes. You rise, stretch, and stoke the fire. Another day begins, but because you honored the night, truly honored it in its two halves, in its quiet watch, you meet the day with something rare. A kind of gentleness, a sense that you were not ripped from sleep, but carried through it. That the night did not rob you of time, but gave it back to you in a different form. And here's the quiet miracle. You slept in a way that asks for nothing. No gadgets, no subscriptions, no promises of hacking your brain. Just darkness, surrender, waking stillness, and return. A rhythm older than cities, older than kingdoms, older perhaps than language itself. Tonight, it will begin again. And now you'll know what to do, or rather you'll remember. You've moved through the night again, first sleep, then waking, then the gentle pull into second sleep. And now the sun has climbed just high enough to brush the tops of the trees with light. You sit beside the hearth, rubbing warmth into your hands, and everything feels a little slower, a little deeper. Not in the way of fatigue, but in the way of rhythm. You're not racing the morning, you're breathing with it. Somewhere nearby, a rooster crows. A pot simmers faintly. The rushes on the floor crunch beneath your feet. You're back in your medieval world, where the morning stretches long and undefined like a field without fences. But something has changed in you. Not just physically, though your shoulders do ache less. Not just mentally, though your thoughts do seem more still. It's something subtler. It's as if by following this old rhythm, this strange, broken-in-two kind of sleep, you've stepped out of the machine that devours time and stepped into something older, something wiser. You rise to begin the day's labor. You help grind grain at the mill. You carry buckets from the stream. You chop kindling and mend fences. All ordinary things, but they feel steadier now, like you've been planted more firmly in your own body. And yet for all its grounding, segmented sleep didn't just serve the physical. It offered something emotional too, something we rarely talk about now, space. The watch was emotional space. Quiet time to think, yes, but more importantly, time to feel. To let sadness drift in without panic. To let joy flicker across your chest without needing to post about it. To remember the dead. To miss someone. To wonder what life might be like if you'd made different choices. And all of that in complete darkness, without noise, without shame. Imagine waking at midnight and not reaching for a screen. Imagine lying in silence under blankets that smell of smoke and rosemary, and allowing your thoughts to simply pass through you like wind. No fixing, no solving, just being. That was the magic of the watch. And this emotional landscape wasn't just for peasants or the religious. Even royalty knew it. Kings and queens cloistered in castles with wool-lined stone walls, and servants tending their needs kept similar rhythms. They too had first sleeps and second sleeps. Some even insisted that treaties not be signed, or decisions made until after the second sleep. Why? Because the clarity that came after the watch was considered sharper, more divine. Sleep divided by reflection was better than sleep uninterrupted by thought. You begin to understand now. The watch wasn't a pause in sleep, it was a bridge, a narrow passage between two worlds, between unconscious restoration and conscious reflection, between the body and the spirit, between today and tomorrow. And this bridge was walked every single night. Let's go further. Imagine you're a traveling tradesman sleeping in a roadside inn outside of York. It's winter, and your bed is nothing more than straw and burlap stuffed into a wooden frame. Your coat is your blanket. You fall asleep shortly after nightfall, full from a bowl of barley porridge and 3 pints of ale. Around you, strangers snore. Horses stamp in the stable below. And then, as always, the watch arrives. You stir, someone across the room coughs. A dog whines softly. The fire is mostly ash now. You pull your coat tighter around your chest and listen to your own breathing. And maybe you think about your wife back in Norwich, or your brother you haven't seen in 3 winters, or the debt you still owe to the wool guild. These thoughts are not burdens, not now. They're companions. They walk with you through the watch. And then before you realize it, you've slipped back into second sleep. When dawn breaks, your body is sore from the road, but your mind feels clean like a page turned. You weren't robbed of rest. You were given it in 2 distinct and meaningful parts. Back in your own village, you help prepare for the midday meal, onions boiled in fat rye bread, perhaps a bit of cured meat if you're lucky. You're joined by others who also woke in the night, also passed through that sacred middle space. No one talks about it, but it lingers in your shared silences, and you realize something: this rhythm, so quiet, so hidden, is the foundation of medieval life. It structures the mind, the body, and the soul. It links people across class, geography, and age. From the monastery to the manor to the pigsty, everyone walks the bridge between sleeps. Then one evening, as the sun sinks low and the shadows grow long again, you lie down and smile. You know what's coming. First sleep, then the watch, then the second act. It doesn't frighten you. It calls to you. It belongs to you. In this moment, centuries away from digital alarms and productivity hacks, you've remembered something we all forgot. Sleep is not just a tool for survival. It's a space for becoming. And the watch, that soft doorway in the middle of the night, is where the becoming begins. The wind has picked up again tonight. It sighs against the shutters and whispers through the cracks in the wattle and daub. You lie still beneath your linen and wool, feeling the heat from the fire's last breath fading near your feet. Outside, the stars are cloaked by clouds. No moonlight spills in through the slats. The dark is complete, pure, ancient, and absolute, and yet you are not alone in it. Your eyes open slowly. You've entered the watch again. There is no surprise in this waking. It feels expected, even welcome. You've come to understand this time not as a disruption, but as a return to stillness, to space, to yourself, a return to the rhythm your body knew long before your mind had words for it. You sit up gently, mindful of those sleeping near you. The air is cold. Your breath floats in small, silent clouds. You pull your cloak tighter and rub warmth back into your hands. There is no rush to do anything. The night will unfold as it always does in its own time. And so you begin your quiet ritual. Tonight, maybe you stretch a bit. Medieval people understood the stiffness of daily toil. They didn't have yoga mats, but they had bodies that ached from bending, lifting, kneeling. They had instincts, too, leaning into the wall, flexing their arms, pulling knees to chest. You do the same now, half by instinct, half by inherited wisdom. It's not exercise, it's presence. Then you rise slowly and move to the hearth. The coals glow faintly beneath their ash. You poke them carefully, add a bit of kindling. The orange pulse grows stronger. The room warms by a breath or two. You don't need light, not really, but fire has a way of comforting the human spirit in any century. There's a bundle of dried herbs tied near the firewood, a mix of lavender, mugwort, and sage. You crush a few leaves and toss them onto the embers. A new scent curls through the room, sharp, woody, medicinal. People believed these plants protected the sleeper, guarded the soul, quieted bad dreams. You believe it too in your own quiet way. And then you wait. You could pray, you could think, or you could simply be. Being that strange, passive, holy act was easier in a world without artificial light, without noise, without endless distraction. And in the watch, there was no performance, no one to impress, no need to make your wakefulness useful. You just existed, like the fire, like the moon, like the earth itself. In the manor house down the road, a noblewoman might be doing the same. Her sheets are finer, her fire larger, her walls thicker, but she too stirs in the night. She too wakes and waits. Perhaps she pens a letter by candlelight, or watches the shadow of a curtain flutter, or prays for her husband in the Crusades. She wears pearls in daylight and wool at night. But in this hour, she is as bare as you are, as human. That's the secret of the watch. It erases status. It humbles kings and lifts peasants. All wake the same way, and all wait in the same silence. And what of the monasteries? The monks have risen already. In the stone chapel, lit by oil lamps and the moon, they chant matins in low voices. Their Gregorian hymns drift through the cloisters and into the cold corridors, echoing like wind through reeds. They do not rush. Their whole lives are shaped around these hours, around waking in the dark, to offer praise. To let the night be not a void, but a sacred passage. You alone at your hearth feel somehow connected to them. Their voices feel near, as though the centuries between you have thinned. You pick up a scrap of cloth and begin to stitch, not for function, just for rhythm, hands moving, mind drifting. Or maybe you carve something small into a bit of wood, or sit with a scrap of charcoal and scrawl half-formed thoughts on a bit of parchment or bark. Whatever you do, it's quiet, unrushed, rooted. This is not a productive hour. It is a human one. You begin to think slowly, softly about your day, about what was said, what wasn't, about the old man in the village who coughed through dinner, about the stranger who passed by on horseback, face hidden, about the way your hands have started to tremble slightly after long work in the field. You don't panic over these thoughts. You don't push them away. The watch welcomes them. It says, bring your fears, bring your questions. Lay them down by the fire and rest beside them. There is time. There is space. You are allowed. And when your eyes grow heavy once more, you do not resist. You lie down, the scent of herbs still lingering in your hair, the warmth of the coals brushing your skin, and second sleep claims you like a tide. This time your dreams are richer. You dream of open doors, of walking barefoot across new ground, of your mother's voice long gone, of a lantern swinging gently on a hook. These dreams don't frighten you. They unfold like stories, not puzzles. You follow them. When you wake again, the night is fading. The sky has begun to gray. Birds are waking. Someone coughs. Someone rises. The fire is almost gone. But you feel ready, because the watch did its work. It asked nothing, and it gave everything. The village stirs in half-light. Shadows stretch long over dew-damp soil, and rooftops shimmer faintly with condensation. You sit at the edge of your bed such as it is, your feet pressed against the cool earthen floor. A soft ache moves through your joints, but it's not unpleasant. It's the kind of ache that comes after a night spent not merely sleeping, but passing through something older, quieter, deeper. You don't wake with a jolt. There's no blaring alarm, no LED numbers blinking their judgment. No jarring headlines demanding your panic. Instead, you wake with awareness, with continuity, as if your sleep didn't end, but simply transitioned into a new form, daylight consciousness. You remember your dream fragments, at least. A candle blown out, a hallway filled with snow, a voice calling softly from a riverbank. Dreams like these aren't analyzed for productivity. They're not seen as mental clutter. They're seen as echoes, messengers, sometimes even warnings. And as you step into the morning mist, you carry that dream like a secret folded into your pocket. A small truth half glimpsed, still warming your chest. The world feels different after segmented sleep. And not because the night was easier, but because it was shared. Shared with yourself, with the rhythms of the earth, with your ancestors, and yes, with strangers scattered across the land, who also stirred at midnight, also sat by coals, also laid down again, when the night invited them back into its arms. Today, your tasks are no different. You'll patch a fence, lead oxen through the furrows, turn soil heavy with last night's rain. Maybe you'll help mend a neighbor's roof or gather kindling in the woods beyond the chapel hill. But your body moves differently now. Not fast, but fluent. There's a strange sense of coherence to everything, like your breath and the wind are somehow in step. Like your feet remember where to walk without you having to tell them. That's the quiet reward of segmented sleep. It doesn't just repair the body, it realigns the soul. And here's something you might not expect. This rhythm wasn't just rural. Even in the heart of medieval cities, noisy, crowded, chaotic, the same pattern pulsed beneath the cobblestones. In the merchant quarters of Bruges, in the shadowy alleys of Paris, in the timbered homes lining the Thames, everyone kept the same nocturnal shape. Inns posted signs reminding guests to keep quiet during the watch. City bells tolled between sleeps. Even bakers who rose early to fire their ovens planned their labor between second sleep and sunrise. The world, despite all its noise, still moved with the breath of the night. But slowly, over centuries, that breath was stifled. It began with candles, then gas lamps, then electricity. Each invention stretched the day further into the night, carving artificial light into the darkness where silence once ruled. Even our language changed. Waking up in the middle of the night used to be called the watch. Now it's called insomnia. And once sleep was a passage, Now it's a problem. We began to measure it, market it, monetize it. And in the process, we turned sleep into something to conquer instead of something to receive. Imagine for a moment the medieval mind witnessing this change. A monk waking for matins in 1237, peering into our fluorescent-lit world where people swallow pills to silence the night, where phones blink through darkness, where wakefulness is feared, not welcomed. He might ask, "Why do you flee the dark?" And we wouldn't know how to answer. Because somewhere along the way we forgot the truth that sleep, real sleep, isn't just unconsciousness. It's rhythm, it's surrender, it's partnership with the turning earth. You feel this now more than ever. You've been practicing. Night after night, you've been walking the ancient path. First sleep, the watch, second sleep, and now it's becoming instinct again. Not a curiosity, not an experiment, but something known, remembered, trusted. Tonight when the sun sets again, you won't reach for devices or distractions. You'll lie down as the fire burns low. You'll drift into first sleep with a body made heavy by honest work. And when the watch returns quiet as snowfall, you'll rise into it like a priest stepping into a silent chapel. Because this is your sacred time, no longer feared, no longer pathologized. This is your inheritance. You have joined the river of sleepers flowing through history, not as someone who tosses in panic, but as someone who listens to the silence between the tides. And when you wake tomorrow, your dream still flickering at the edges of your memory, you will know again that you didn't sleep through the night. You moved with it, and the night moved with you. Night has fallen again. The fire crackles low, the room dim and flickering, and you lie beneath your coarse linens, waiting not anxiously, but expectantly. You know the rhythm now. You trust it. First sleep is near, and beyond it, the watch. And beyond that, the slow, luxurious slide into second sleep. You don't fear waking anymore. In fact, you might even be looking forward to it. The silence around you is thick and familiar. You can hear the breathing of those beside you, the sigh of wood contracting in the cold, the occasional rustle of animals below the floorboards. Outside, the wind hums through the narrow gaps in the doorframe, carrying with it the earthy smell of smoke and soil. All of it presses in like a lullaby. Your eyes close. First sleep welcomes you like a woolen cloak drawn over your shoulders. And then some hours later, you open them again. Not startled, not groggy, just awake. This is the watch. You sit up quietly. There is no candle, but the embers still give off their ghost light. You pull your cloak tighter and swing your feet down onto the floor. You move slowly, reverently. This moment feels earned. Tonight, you decide to step outside. The door creaks as you push it open, and the cold night air greets you like an old friend. The stars are out, bright and aching. No city haze hides them here. The moon is high, casting long shadows over the crooked fences and empty path. You breathe in, deeply. The night smells of ash and frost, of pine smoke and damp grass. You can hear the soft snuffle of animals settling in the stable, the occasional bark of a distant dog. Everything is still, and in this stillness you feel something deeper than rest. You feel belonging, Because this hour, this quiet, cold, star-bathed hour is yours. Yours to feel, yours to think, yours to pray or stretch or simply exist. You sit on a flat stone near the door, your cloak gathered around your knees, and you let the silence soak into your skin. It doesn't feel empty. It feels full, heavy with presence, like something is listening, like something is waiting. It's no wonder, really, that medieval people saw the watch as a time of connection, not just with others, but with the divine. The veil between heaven and earth seemed thinner here. Dreams bled into waking. Thoughts took on a sacred weight. Even simple things like the breath fogging from your lips felt like rituals. And in this hour, you understand what they meant. You don't need to do anything. There is no agenda here. But you might think about someone you've lost, or whisper a hope you haven't spoken aloud in the daylight, or recall a story someone once told you beside a fire like this one. Even the monks, so structured, so bound by ritual, understood the freedom of the watch. They would gather in the cold chapels, voices low, and melodic chanting, matins, while others slept. It was their offering. Not a performance, but a participation, a giving of time back to the night. And when their voices faded, they returned to their cells, to sleep, to dreams, to stillness. You are not so different. Eventually, the cold reaches your toes. The fire is nothing now but soft orange veins beneath gray ash. You rise slowly and return inside. The door clicks shut behind you, sealing out the wind. You remove your cloak, fold it with slow hands, and lie back down. Your body sighs into the straw-stuffed mattress. Your limbs curl in like leaves folding under frost. And then, without effort, without command, second sleep takes you. It's dream-heavy, deep. The kind of sleep that feels like submersion. The kind that leaves no sharp edges. The kind that repairs not just muscles, but emotions. And when you wake again, when the birds begin to sing, and the faintest light leaks through the shutter, cracks, you rise as if you've been remade. Not just rested, restored. There is a peace in you that wasn't there yesterday. A softness behind your eyes. A patience in the way you carry your body. Because segmented sleep has done its work again. Not through science or supplements or some app telling you when to close your eyes, but through silence, through trust, through stepping out into the dark and finding that it holds you. And when you look up at the sky later that morning, bright now full of motion, you'll still remember the stars from the watch. The stars that watched you back. Another day passes in its quiet rhythm. The tools are set down. The bread is shared. The sun lowers its gaze. You've begun to move through this medieval world with a kind of invisible cadence now tuned not to clock towers or alarms, but to a whispering pattern that stretches across centuries. You're no longer observing this sleep rhythm, you're inhabiting it. And so as the last light slips from the hills and the sky turns the color of old ash, you begin to prepare. There's no ritual, really, no command. It's just what you do. The fire is stirred. The shutters latched. A blanket is shaken out, a shoulder rolled. You lie down as naturally as breathing. There is no thought of when to sleep. Your body knows. The sun is gone, and so you go too. The first sleep arrives like the tide. Slow, constant, inescapable. Your muscles release one by one. The room around you fades into shadows and then into nothing. For 4 or 5 hours, you are gone, swept under, folded in held. And then, as always, the surface returns. You wake into the watch with no alarm, no thought, just a sense, a knowledge. It is time again, time to sit, time to be. Tonight the silence feels different, heavier perhaps, or deeper. The fire has nearly died. A few last embers blink weakly beneath their ash. You don't relight it. Not tonight. You pull your cloak close and sit in the dark. This hour is yours. Not because you earned it, not because you worked for it, but because it's part of what it means to be human in this time, in this place, in this rhythm. You listen to the room, to your breath, to the way your thoughts bloom and wither and bloom again in the quiet. Maybe tonight you think of someone far away, someone you haven't seen in a season or a year or ever again. Their face appears unbidden in your mind's eye. You don't force it away. You let it stay. In the watch, nothing is unwelcome. Even sadness has space here. Even longing. And as you sit there, you begin to realize something you hadn't fully grasped before. This middle of the night waking, this sacred pause, this small candleless vigil isn't just about sleep. It's about attention, about noticing, about creating a space in the middle of your life where nothing is demanded of you except awareness. And that's rare, precious, in any age. The medieval people understood this in their bones. They may not have had psychology or sleep studies or wellness influencers, but they had a truth that modernity buried, that the human spirit needs intervals. Not just sleep, not just rest, but these holy intermissions, these silent watchtowers where one can look out over the hours and ask nothing but, what is here now? And often, the answer is simple. Stillness, breath, memory. You curl deeper into your blanket. The rushes on the floor crackle softly beneath the weight of your shifting feet. Someone near you turns in their sleep, murmuring something wordless. You smile. You are not alone. And yet this moment belongs entirely to you. Perhaps you whisper a prayer, not a formal one, just a few words, a name, a hope, something sent into the dark without the need for reply. Or maybe you light a small taper not for illumination, but companionship. The glow warms the room just enough. You see your hands again. You see the edges of the wall. You see your breath. And you feel seen. It is not productivity. It is not efficiency. It is presence. And presence, the medieval world reminds you, is enough. Eventually, as always, your body begins to lean. Your eyes grow heavy. The ember of your attention dims. You lie down again, not because you must, but because the second sleep is arriving. Not like a thief, not like an escape, but like a trusted friend returning to finish the conversation. And you welcome it. This sleep is softer, less dramatic. It doesn't rush you away, it gathers you, like arms around shoulders, like a song hummed low, and somewhere within it, the dreams return. Tonight they are quiet and strange. You're walking a hallway filled with feathers. A child leads you by the hand. The air smells of honey and pine resin. There is no fear, no questions, just movement, just mystery. You do not wake with answers, but you wake with peace. And that perhaps is all the second sleep ever needed to give. When you rise at last, blinking into morning's pale light, your body is rested, yes. But more than that, yourself is rested. The part of you that lives beneath thought. The part that watches your days pass like carts along a road. And in that rested self, there is a soft and secret joy. You walked through the night. You woke without panic. You paused. You returned. And you were never lost. The days roll on, and with them the nights continue to unfold like pages in a book written long before you were born. You have slipped into this medieval rhythm so thoroughly now that it no longer feels novel, it feels inevitable, natural, right. You don't wait for sleep anymore. You don't chase it. You let it come. As dusk falls, you're already adjusting the hearth, folding the blanket, just so placing the cup of water where you'll reach for it in the watch. You don't do these things consciously. Your hands move from memory, from trust. You know what's coming, and the knowing makes it easier. You lie down as the dark settles over the land like an enormous woolen sheet. Somewhere far away, a wolf howls, a cart creaks. Someone laughs faintly in the distance, their voice snatched up by wind and folded into the hills. But inside the room is still, warmed, waiting. The first sleep arrives gently. You slip beneath the surface. You might dream or you might not. What matters is the surrender, the letting go. And when your eyes open again some hours later, the night greets you like an old friend standing by the door. You're not surprised. You're not annoyed. You are welcomed. You sit up slowly. The fire has dipped to nothing but orange glowing bones. The air has chilled. You pull your cloak around you and rest your feet near the hearthstones, feeling the slight ghost of heat rise through your soles. Tonight, you do nothing elaborate. You simply exist. The room breathes with you. Outside, the stars scatter wide and bright across the ink-black sky. You can feel them even if you can't see them. Their quiet, ancient light pressing gently on the roof of your home. You let your thoughts wander. Maybe you recall a conversation from earlier in the day, something simple, the way the old man at the market held his hands, or the sound of a girl humming beside the well. You don't analyze these memories. You just sit with them, as if they've followed you into the watch, asking silently to be held for a while. This is what the medieval night was: not escape, but integration. A stitching together of the day and the dream, of reality and reflection. And then, as always, the watch begins to loosen its grip. You feel it first in your breathing, how it slows. Then in your limbs, how they begin to sink like stones into mud. You lie down again quietly, and the second sleep claims you. You dream of the sea tonight, cold winds, salt air, the creaking of ropes on masts you've never seen before. Perhaps you're someone else in the dream. Or perhaps you're still you, but deeper. A version of you that belongs to no single time, but to every moment that ever stirred awake in the dark and felt the night press close like a prayer. You wake with the sun, not abruptly, but in phases. The birds are already calling. The room is colored gold by the fire you've rekindled. You stretch, and the blanket falls away from your shoulders like a second skin. You've slept. But more importantly, you've watched. And in that middle, waking in that pause, the day feels lighter now, less burdensome, less tight. Because you were never meant to be constantly productive, or perfectly asleep, or perfectly awake. You were meant to move between the two. And medieval people knew this. They didn't fight the watch. They folded it in, into their spiritual lives, into their domestic rhythms, into their love lives. Even intimacy was often reserved for the watch. Couples found one another in that quiet time between sleeps where the world had no demands, where no one watched, where the mind was softened and the heart laid bare. It was not rushed, not driven by appetite. It was tender, human. Tonight perhaps you lie down with that in your heart, the sense that the night offers not just rest, but reconnection with your thoughts, with your breath, with someone you care for deeply, or even just with yourself. And as your eyes close again, the fire humming low, you know what waits. Not restlessness, not fear, but time. Time to wake, time to sit, time to sleep again. You will not conquer the night. You will walk through it, and you will be made whole. By now, the rhythm is in your marrow. You feel it without thinking, like tide, like breath, like instinct. As the sun slips below the hills, you begin to prepare not for sleep, but for a journey, a quiet passage through the folds of darkness. Your hands gather firewood, not out of duty, but with ceremony. Your cloak is folded, the shutters latched. The cup is placed by the bedside, the fire fed until it glows like the inside of a chestnut. These small acts feel sacred now. They are the final chords in the song of your day. You don't dread the coming night. You wait for it, because you know what it brings. You lie down as the last light fades and the shadows deepen into something complete. The house breathes with you. The animals rustle below. A pot long since emptied cools by the hearth. You close your eyes. First sleep welcomes you like a warm tide rising over tired bones. Hours pass. The kind of hours no one counts. Unclocked, unclaimed, whole. And then soft as mist you wake. The watch is here again. You do not move at first. You lie in the dark and simply listen. The fire is quiet. The room is shaped only by shadows. A draft moves along the floor like a whisper. In this stillness, your thoughts don't come rushing. They drift in gently. Memory, gratitude, longing. They pass through you like light through water. Eventually, you sit up. You pull your cloak around you and stretch your legs toward the warmth. No one stirs. You are alone in the best way, solitary, not abandoned. Free, not isolated. You poke at the coals with a stick, and they bloom again in slow red flowers. Their light casts your shadow long on the wall, and you begin to think softly about the things that can only be thought in this hour. Maybe you think of someone you miss, someone gone, or someone still near but distant in some way. You don't try to solve it. You simply sit with it. The medieval watch made room for this kind of reflection, for grief unspoken but unashamed, for joy too in small forms, the way the air feels against your cheek, the way the light dances on the iron kettle, the quiet, especially the quiet. In this space, you are not expected to be anything but awake. It is enough. And across the centuries, others are awake too. A monk stirring in his cell, a weaver sitting at the edge of his cot, a midwife pacing near a hearth waiting for a cry, a young girl heartbroken whispering prayers to a God she isn't sure hears her, a father eyes wide open worrying about debts he cannot pay. This hour belongs to them all, and now it belongs to you. You rest your hands in your lap. You feel the pulse in your fingertips. You listen to the fire. Nothing more is asked of you. And when the time is right, and it always knows, you lie back down. Second sleep wraps around you like a sigh. This time you dream of flight, of fields rolling beneath you, of bells ringing in the distance, not loud but clear. You feel weightless, unafraid. You wake slowly, gently. The room is still dim, but the night has begun to loosen. A faint bluish glow presses against the shutters. The birds are stirring. You rise and stretch. Your knees creak, but your breath is steady. The fire has cooled to ash, and yet you feel warm, because you didn't rush. You didn't fight the dark. You walked through it again like one who belongs there. And in doing so, you've recovered something, not just sleep, but the grace that lies within it. You no longer measure your rest in hours or cycles or graphs. You measure it in peace. And the peace has come. The pattern is as natural now as the rising of the sun or the creaking of the wooden floor beneath your feet. Night comes, and you feel it in your spine before you see it outside the shutter cracks. Your limbs begin to slow, your thoughts soften. Even your breath, so automatic and overlooked by day, now falls into rhythm with the world darkening around you. This is not just a routine anymore, it's a return to the self, to something deeper than comfort, deeper than sleep. Tonight you sit a little longer by the hearth before lying down. The coals are already low, the light weak but warm. Your body feels worn in the best way, not overused, not depleted, but well spent. Like bread torn into the hands of those you love. You lie back into the straw mattress, the thick wool blanket drawn to your chin, and already your thoughts begin to float. They no longer jostle and tangle, they drift. The fire flickers on your eyelids and you let go. First sleep comes quickly now. The body knows the signal. You fall through the layers without resistance. Down past the noise of the day, past the voice in your head, into silence. And after some quiet, holy hours, you stir again. It's never abrupt. You simply wake as if something inside you remembers that this hour belongs to no one else but you. It is the watch. You sit up, not out of habit, but desire. You crave this moment now. The dark isn't a barrier. It's a room. A sacred chamber that exists for no reason but to be occupied. You rise and tiptoe to the hearth. You kneel near it, palms open toward the remaining heat. You don't need firelight to think. You don't need a book or a prayer or a task. You only need space. And the watch gives you space in abundance. Tonight you think about time, not as a line but a spiral, about how this rhythm has always been here like an underground stream running beneath the noise of modern life, waiting to be uncovered. You think about all the people centuries worth who woke like you are now, who sat like this in the dark, waiting for the second sleep. You feel connected to them. Even across time, even across silence, you feel their presence like candlelight flickering from distant windows you can't quite see. They were here, and now you are too. Maybe you whisper something aloud, a memory, a name, a question. The dark does not answer in words, but it receives them just the same. And when the warmth returns to your hands and your eyes begin to grow heavy again, you lie down without a second thought. The second sleep comes like snow, soft, slow, and inevitable. It's deeper somehow. The dreams stretch longer. You dream of stone cathedrals overgrown with ivy, of walking barefoot through fields lit by stars, of people who no longer live sitting beside you as if they never left. The dreams don't need interpretation. They just need to be felt. And when morning returns soft and gray, you don't rush to leave sleep behind. You sit for a moment before rising. You thank the fire. You gather your cloak. You listen to the first crow of the rooster. Another day is here. But something is different now, even in this simple act of waking. You are not tired. You are whole. Because this rhythm, this ancient rhythm, has carried you again through the dark and into light. Not with force, not with optimization, but with trust. Segmented sleep is no longer a lost relic of the past. It is something you carry now, inside you. A gift from a world that knew how to be quiet. A world that didn't fear the night. A world that understood that sometimes the most sacred thing you can do is simply wake and wait and rest again. And now so do you. So now, as you lie in your own bed, maybe miles from a hearth, maybe surrounded by the low hum of machines, rather than the soft crackle of a medieval fire, know this: your body still remembers. It remembers the rhythm, the tide, the rise and fall of sleep divided into two soft halves, the pause in between where nothing is expected and everything is possible. You might wake tonight. You might find yourself staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m., the room wrapped in silence, the world asleep. And now you'll know what to do. You won't panic. You won't check the clock and count backward or forward or worry about what time you need to get up. You'll breathe. You'll remember that this hour the watch is ancient and sacred. It has held the thoughts of farmers and queens, monks and mothers, soldiers and scribes. It has welcomed dreams and prayers, fears and comfort, grief and gratitude. So when it comes, welcome it. Let your thoughts drift. Let your breath slow. Let the silence press gently around you like a familiar blanket. And when the second sleep returns, and it will, you'll return with it. Not as someone broken, but as someone remembering something the world forgot. Sleep well, dream deeply, and if you wake before morning, you're not alone.